Yeah. Seed talk, stuff to make your seeds walk. Shout out to Bobby Precious and everyone that's ever been on Seed Talk. We got a very special guest, and we're going to talk about some stuff that we really need to be talking about in our community for sure. Talking about financial literacy and whatnot. I'm excited to have this guest on the show. One of the people that when I put it out there on social media, I was like, anyone want to be on the show and want to share something that's important for our community? She was one of the first persons, if not the first person, to say, "Hey, man, I want to get on here and talk about financial literacy." So, just to let you know before we get started, talking and whatnot, we're gonna be talking about life insurance. We're gonna talk about, what I'm saying, how to determine if it's a pyramid scheme or if it's something that could really help you. We're gonna talk about how many modes of income you ideally should have and whatnot. And we're just going to talk about the importance, what I'm saying, of financial literacy. And we encourage you to into the comments and just comment, talk about, get that engagement going, get those algorithms going, because we need to have more conversations that are specific to our community, but more specifically to our unique trauma. And financial trauma is one of our biggest issues in our community. That's very unique because it's very hard to generate generational wealth. And I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, and I'm sure Katrina's got something to say about that. But before we get started with all that, like I said again, please share and content. Please share this content and comment, but also make sure you donate. You know what I'm saying? Slavery's over. We want to get paid for our time. So donate to Seed Talk, Cash App, $ Logic Amen, Venmo, Logic Amen. And when this is live, I'm going to put Katrina's Cash App up there or Venmo if she so pleases, and you can donate to her. And definitely need to get with her so you can get hooked up with some financial literacy, education and advice and suggestions and wisdom and all that. So, why don't you just go ahead and we'll just start it off and just, tell them who you are, where you grew up, anything you would like to share and things of that nature.
Yes, I would like to say thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to have conversation with you. And also, thank you for allowing us to have a platform where we can share information that we have into our community. Just a little bit of background. My name is Katrina, as you can see. You can call me Kat. I want to say I grew up in Tacoma, 253 all day. I got there, when I was 16, a military brat. A lot of times, that's how we get there. My father was in the military. So I believe when I was 16 years old. So I got there, I grew up, went to Clover Park High School. And while I was in high school, I involved myself a lot in the activities that clubs, African American Club, DECA program, debate, stuff like that. So I was really into community involvement from the beginning. And then I could move forward and use those type of skills in my lifestyle, I guess, as a young female. I will say exchanges of people asking me to borrow pencils and never give them back, and having supplies of them and charging them 25 cents. Later on, that kind of became a thing. But just growing up and using those and working in the community, my last job, I will say, was Blockbuster Video. So that tells you how old I am. Just kind of going through that motion of getting a job outside of high school, the normalcy that they teach you in the community, had me going forward, finding something that would be stable, moving up in ranks, and then they closed. So I didn't understand what would happen if you attach yourself to a job and it goes away. So no one really tells you about that. People feel like, it's encouraged, get a job security, work all your life and retire. And, at 65, hopefully you'll have some pension or something. I have no idea. But when that closed, it was a huge traumatic experience for me because I was a single parent and I did rely on that security and I did not know what to do. So I went in a panic and it came to a point where the letters and stuff were coming to me, Cobra, what are you going to do? You don't have health insurance, you don't have anything. So it made me go into a survival mode of if I allowed a company to have that much control over me and my finances that I would be in trouble if I keep doing it. So I swore to never work, I guess, for anyone, and I haven't since then. I just kind of learned to become an entrepreneur at that point. I started with servicing the community. So I found that people in the community are going to need a something. If I'm at home, people ask me to help watch their kids and so forth. And I just created businesses out of those things, and then now I'm here in
Yeah.
the
And you have a pretty unique, background. I want you to talk a little bit about your parents and whatnot. You say you're a military brat and whatnot. You feel comfortable talking about like your parents and whatnot and how that influence, because I have my ideas, based on conversations I've had with you and other people, black people with the same, ancestry as yours. And I would like to, see how that impacted, what I'm saying, your financial literacy, perspective and whatnot. If you could just talk about, your parents and stuff and the uniqueness in that union.
Yeah, of course. My mother is Korean, of Korean descent. My father, his family, they are from the Bahamas. They did move to Miami, and he did join the military. So that's how he ended up in Korea. So I do have those two cultures in the household. They are still together, and they function a little bit different. My mother is really, traditional and strict, but not to a point where there's no wiggle room. But she just really, she's a typical Asian. You go to school, you do this and that. But she was really in tune with being in charge with the finances and keeping the structure of the home. She didn't have to work, so it freed her up to educate me and my brother and manage the finances as my dad worked. But she did get a job every once in a while. So, vacation money and stuff like that, came into play. And then if she didn't, we didn't really feel the difference other than, we didn't really know. But the focus of having the mother there and her with finances, it made it balanced. So it made me feel like that's how it should be. So that is a role that was put into my mind. So I do lead with that. Being a hope, I don't know, a helpmate to some spouse if I get it one. So I could see that a dynamic like that in a household would function. But I do see that there's not a lot of two-parent households that are out there. So I can see where the discomfort may come from, where the woman does have to go into survival mode.
Right. So you're what I'm thinking is that your father met your mother when he was, conducting his service over in Korea, or
Yes, yes.
okay.
That was his first
And
decision. Hmm.
oh, okay. So you got any what's the history and how they met? You got any did you
Yeah,
get the scoop?
she didn't speak that much English. It was at the NCO club, people party, they were in their, hey, see guys, they're there, and it was just more of, she explained that, she was just really shy of being accompanied, to her friend who wanted to go. And he used to see her all the time, and they didn't really speak, they couldn't really communicate, but he knew how to show a drink and put it in front of her to say, I want to buy you a drink. So they just kept doing that every other Saturday, and then one day they danced, and now I'm here. Yeah. But it was interesting because the first couple of months they really didn't know how to communicate other than, just showing an expression, and I have no
Yeah.
idea. So,
Yeah. It's interesting because the Seattle Tacoma area, for people that's out of this area, they might not realize that's really one of our fixtures and one of our features of the Pacific Northwest culture is, military, relationships and children, that come from those, you know what I'm saying? And that points to a time in history where blacks and Asians blended cultures and understood that they had a lot of, common, um, attributes and features, especially one being that we got a common oppressor with the colonizer and whatnot. And that had a lot to do with the why the military was there. Um, I want to get into the commonalities that your parents have, especially when we talk about the stereotypes of Korean parents and Caribbean parents. But before I get into that, we hear the stories about how people in those countries intentionally go out um, and meet, military men from America, to try to, get out of the, circumstances that they're in, and to hear that your parents are still together. It's not seeming like that was just something that was just circumstantial. It was something that
Yeah.
was meant to last. So, like, did your mom ever tell you, like, why she went to the NCO club? Was her intention to find a military guy?
Actually,
Um,
no. And her parents were against them seeing each other. Actually, both sides were against them being together. Number one, my mother was Korean. So they were like, you're trying to marry a foreigner and bring, and her parents, you got this black guy, trying to take you. And they are from large families from 8 and 9. My parents, they're still in Korea, the whole entire family. She's the only one who rebelled, I guess. So it was a rift in that, but they found in each other because of the animosity or, rhetoric, whatever that they were getting, they found a certain comfort in each other's want to support to continue. He wanted to bring her to opportunities because she didn't, finish school or learn how to drive or, and, the culture of her the stereotype is real. She wanted to serve him and be a wife and, those things that maybe hasn't felt. I'm not trying to, that's a sensitive subject. But it drew him to her. And he, him wanting to teach her drew him to, drew her to him.
mhm.
So those two in combination, they finally convinced their parents to allow them to marry, and they are still here.
Sounds like they complemented each other, in their needs and what they needed in their life at that time.
Yeah.
Let's I think that's a whole different episode. I would love to dive into having parents of different cultures, or however you want to say it, different races. People look at it, and describe it different ways. There's probably a multiple ways to look at it, from cultures to race to gender, all that. However, let's talk about, like, growing up in a Korean and Caribbean. Has a nice little has a nice little swing to it. Caribbean and Korean family, like, how much did they you know meet the stereotypes of the Caribbean family, that they're stereotyped as hard workers, know how to save their money. They're very, very frugal. The same with Korean families, straight to the point. I used to work for a Korean family at Sneaker City in downtown Seattle. I'm not trying to reinforce stereotypes or anything. I can only tell you how I was treated and how we communicate. They were very straight to the point,
Yeah.
and I could tell a lot about how they ran their business, about their business acumen, and it was definitely in line with, they man they were by the book,
Yeah.
and they were, quote unquote, pinching pennies, and
Yeah.
it was a whole different level of financial literacy that I was accustomed to, as being descendant of people who were enslaved here in America. um how much did your parents meet the criteria of that stereotype of Caribbean and Korean?
Oh man, all of it, but they bumped heads. So this was a thing. With my mother, they both of them, they grew up pretty, poor. They had to pay for, they're breaking up one piece of bread to all 8 kids. It was very poor, but their work ethic was major. The difference between the two cultures is, with the Korean culture, it was more like in the family, like you're gonna sell a shoe to make sure we get that dollar back in here. And it was super by the book, and you're going to pay your bills, but you're going to pay it twice in the month before it even gets to the due date to make sure they got all of it before they can even complain to you, right? Whereas on the flip side, yes, there was a Caribbean culture, but they were raised in Miami. So the work ethic was there. You know, my grandfather, he, Miami hero, take care of my grandmother. My grandmother never had to work. They had 9 kids. I don't know how she never had to work with 9 kids, but both sides, the men of the household did take care of the households. But they were just a little more on the loose side with the money. It was more superficial, um, um, where they found the value in, oh look, I bought this new car, or oh look, I have new clothes, I have new things. So when my mom came to Miami, that was her very first experience to America. So her thought in America was TV. We bring her to Liberty City or Okinawa, or not Okinawa, excuse me, Opalaka, or Miami, where there's like, you're in the hood, so you're gonna see the way that the culture is in the home versus spending. And she used to always say, like, man, you're always spending money, and then you don't have any money. Why don't you have money when you have money? So there was always, a clash of what the value was. The dollar would be accurate and brought in. Work ethic was the same. The value placement of where it went when it came to the house was very different to this day.
That's really dope, man. Because I never looked at it like that. You feel me? Like, so it was hard work ethic for the Korean side, and the black side and the Caribbean side, but then the way what you did with that hard earned money was different. You know what I'm saying? I'm sure there's something that your mom splurged on. What did she splurge on though?
Well, I never knew. I mean, it was mainly, the money that she got. Well, of course, she went to the casino. Okay, that's her. That's her little thing. That's her thing.
See, another stereotype. Fortune
It
pie
is, because
now.
you will see them. I know exactly what machine she's at right now. Okay, um, that is the thing.
See,
But the growing up, I knew when she had money, when we went places together, vacationing, surprise to Disney World, maybe new clothes, because new clothes was rare. With my mother, it was, we didn't go out to eat. When we went out to eat, that was a celebration. I didn't know to, like, every day, you know, people are going out to eat. I don't understand. Like, so the frugalness was a lot different. It was more, we had to earn this pile, and then we took that pile and went somewhere and we rewarded ourselves, compared to, my dad. I can call him right now and say me some money. I don't know, just because. Um, so yeah, it's still that way though. Yeah, it's still that way. It's not going anywhere.
well, what was your dad frugal about? What was he frugal
Nothing.
about?
He's buying them. Well, he didn't really splurge on himself, I will say. He, because he works very, very hard to take care of my mom in the household. He takes pride in that. Like, he doesn't like her grabbing her purse for things if if it was suggested by him, or, so that was a thing. So he's, I never seen him like, oh, shoes and clothes for himself. Even in the home, you can kind of see that, they still have furniture from when I was little. I'm like, why do we still have this garbage can? It's 40 years old. So, but the travel, the connection, the investing and growing in the stability was a big deal for him.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I haven't
mm.
seen, he'll go to Walmart.
Right. So tell me how that impacted and influenced your financial literacy as a child. Like you said you were used to work at um Blockbuster Video, which is, and you grew up in Tacoma, which is really interesting because Tacoma was home to one of the few Blockbuster Videos
Yes.
in the world. At one point, I know they had one in West Seattle for a while before they shut it down, but um, it's just a little joke that we have about Tacoma when we're talking about Tacoma being stuck in the time machine. They had a block at one point. They had a Blockbuster Video and a Kmart. Can't make
Yes.
this up. I could, but I'm not. So, but anyway, so growing up in Tacoma, Washington, with a Korean and Caribbean parents, one that splurges, one that's frugal, um, until she wants to go to the casino. Uh,
Yeah.
but how did that impact influence you as a child growing up? Like, what
Oh yeah, it embedded. You know, when my mom would say things like, um, going to the thrift store or something like that is cool. She won't waste it. She will have the same. Like I said, we have furniture and stuff since I was little. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. She's not one of them. So my mindset and being humble stuck with me. So when I was with my friends, I didn't want to do that. I don't know. I started doing things like coming up with little clubs, for us to put money in a pot together. And, now they call them dues, right? And at the end of the month, me and my friends would go to the mall and buy something, but we would have enough in there. So I would start doing stuff like that. I started to look at, things that people would have missing, and ask for a lot and provide it. It just made me want to do that, to the point where, I mean, even when I was little, I was babysitting the neighborhood kids, and because I knew they wanted to go out, the parents, but I was in a complex, and I asked my mom if I did, $20 a night. That's a lot of money. But when I started to see the exchange of services and people paying, I was like, wait a minute. I had to learn, let me figure this out here. And that's where it all actually started. So even with growing up and my friends, my first pair of jeans and probably name brand shoes, I didn't get until I was middle school. I didn't really care. And even now, I don't have the attachment feeling of, where did you get, someone made this. I don't know, so I don't have that, ooh, I need to go get that bag feeling. I don't. Unless it's going to come into a pot that's going to make me grow some way. That's the feeling I want to get. Now, with my dad, and the way that he, was like, oh, okay, yeah, I kicked out a little bit because when I was starting to get that money, then I was like, oh, I'm buying my own school clothes and I'm buying my own, X, Y, and Z. But then I saw people wanting to know how, and instead of like doing the money splurge with them, I would want to teach them how to do it. So those things kind of like mixed while I was working and dealing with my friends. So I thought it was pretty cool, actually.
So you said you haven't worked for someone else for how long now?
Since Blockbuster Video closed, I think that
Oh,
was,
damn.
yeah. Yeah, I went down with the ship. Like, I remember I was, a store manager. I was a floating store manager. We were converting like video updates and stuff into Blockbusters, and I would go and, kind of get them trained up and ready. And then once they're ready to open, I would go to a new store. So that's what I was doing. But then Netflix and Redbox came out, and they harped on the laziness. Well, not lazy, but convenience. It going to your home, and that was a problem with, Blockbuster paying for brick and mortar buildings, as well
Hmm.
as trying to get them into their home. So then we just saw the crash of it, and it just all fell apart. Ever since then, I stayed at home too. I was married, twice, and during those time frames, I was able to stay at home and homeschool my kids. And in those moments, I did, see again services. People asking me to watch their kids. I opened a daycare. I was doing people's hair. I used to braid. I opened a barbershop. I opened a second barbershop, when I got married, to give to my husband. A moving company. I did taxes. Anything that people were asking me for,
That's dope.
I was already doing it. So it just, you got to put a system in place for the things that they're asking for, and then it all of a sudden becomes a business.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I always try to make this as educational as possible and really try to explain what we do. And if we investigate and be educated on our trauma and the uniqueness of it, we'll be able to understand why we do what we do. I love the fact that you corrected yourself when you said, oh, because people are lazy. And you'd be like, wait. people wanted something that was more convenient. A lot of times we get in the habit of calling ourselves lazy as Black, Indigenous, brown and copper people. Even when we're talking about your parents, you know what I'm saying? It's a similar upbringing where they were working for a colonizer, you know what I'm saying? To benefit themselves. They had to benefit someone else to benefit themselves. And what's unique to being the descendant of enslaved people like me, even if we're talking about, maybe some of my people as they moved up through the ranks were even indentured servants, is we have gotten into the generational conditioning of working for someone who does not protect our needs. And that whole model, a lot of people don't look at it from chattel slavery and field slavery was taken, and that's our 8-hour work week. People don't understand that. Your vacations is the same vacation they used to give enslaved people. And so we talk about why don't we have generational wealth when we have all these skills and we have a strong work ethic? It's because just like in the past, they stole all our patents and they continue to do that. They make it twice as harder for us to get loans, to get credit, for what we do, and to get the financial kickbacks and the financial autonomy and also the access. So as we continue this conversation, it's not so much that Black folks and brown folks are lazy, it's that we're tired and we're exhausted. And so we're like, let's just work for somebody and just get this check, get their benefits, you know what I'm saying? Because we've seen other Black people try to do it, and they're asking us to borrow money, or they're charging us $20 for an 8-ounce bottle of shea butter when we know we can get a bottle of Jergens for 4 and get twice as much. We don't see the value in helping someone else, sometimes because we just can't afford it, or our value system is that we don't want to save up to give back to people that look like us, or even give back to ourselves, when the convenience is just to buy it for someone, someone else at a cheaper price. So, I mean, keeping that in mind, like, what's it been like being independent business owner, working within and with, outside of your community, having to depend on your clientele and just your work ethic, and because you can't depend on a paycheck. What's that been like?
Absolutely right. Oh, it's not always been easy. I know that. It's all about mindset. I feel like, because when we are working, it is that stability that's there, right? But when they look at the stability, they're only looking at the actual act of a job, where they're not looking at the stability of you doing the same thing you're doing. You know what I mean? So, for example, if I started to sell oranges, and I know that I need to get rid of a bag, and I need to make a certain amount of money. Usually, people would start as a hobby, right? They would only like sell it to some friend that they know, or something like that, and they just feel like it's not working. Well, you need to structure yourself in a 40-hour work week, just like any other person, and then they get the words mixed up because we follow through with our words. So if people say, "Oh, I want to be my own boss because I can tell myself what to do," when the reality is you're your own boss, that means you need to make your own schedule and you need to stick to it. Because if you don't listen to you, then you can't listen to yourself, or anyone else won't listen to you either, because they see they're not listening to you because you are your own boss. So
Mm,
having that mindset change and behavior and going through it, oh, it was a struggle for real, because you have to come up, people are like, where do I come up with startup money, or the same structure that they see in a book, how to start a business. But literally knowing who's in your network, in your community, and what they do, and you network within your network is your net worth. So some things that may be missing and you may need to barter or exchange, and you continue to do that within your community, you will be able to use those tools to keep going and growing in your business. You don't have to
yeah.
be in a systematic structure that they tell you by getting a loan from a bank and then, whatever system that they want you to do and get indebted in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the idea of the barter system. We also hear people in our community talk about susu funds. Um, and I'm not really educated, and I need to educate myself more about that.
My grandmother did it. That's why I got it
Yeah,
from her.
yeah, and co-ops, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny how we see a lot of white businesses incorporating things that they learned from indigenous cultures.
Yes.
And people don't even realize it because once again, just like the free breakfast club program was an idea stolen from the Black Panther Party, where we decided we're not going to let the government pay for, what I'm saying, well, be in charge of feeding our children. So we started free breakfast club programs, um, and they took that and they turned that into free and reduced lunch. You know what I'm saying? And but it's the same thing with like a co-op. When you go like the PCC, you know what I'm saying? You're part of a co-op. That's something in the Pacific Northwest. It's a pretty um well-known um grocery chain, but you can actually be a part of it. You can, buy in that. It's a co-op. But they got that from indigenous cultures. And I would love to see a whole swap meet where money with the colonizer on it is no good.
Yes.
The only thing that is good is what you bring a value and what you're willing to trade. A whole swap meet and a whole, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like, like they do farmers market. Another thing that was taken from indigenous people, like a
Oh,
whole farmers arc, what they call it barters market, where you just come. See, I'm just throwing out ideas out there because I know there's business people out there that are better than me and have that wisdom. I'm an artist, so I like to come up with stuff. I'm not really all that great of executing business ideas. We all have our own skills and stuff. That's why it's good to have you on here for the complementary duality. But like even like the same thing, like I wanted to talk a little bit about like the hardships that people may have as independent business owners and um just going into business by themselves because like for me, like I'm an educator, that's my skill, and I'm an artist. And I've always, thought about that's a vision I have is and a dream um to open up my own school. But um two things about that is the majority of our students, and our people are in the system. So I want to go where my people are. And then also that's, where the money is so I can support myself. But also, so like I learned from like, Dr. Umar Johnson, he might have his deficits, but I always take the best part. And I just looked at how much criticism he got when he tried to open up his own school. And it seems like there's a lack of trust for black owned businesses and whatnot. Can you speak on that? Why it's so hard for a lot of black business owners to get started because there's not a lot of trust. It's like like we always say in the community, the white people's water is always
yeah.
colder.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. I actually helped somebody open a school. It stemmed from my daycare. I had a daycare back in the day, Merciful Hands Daycare, and my volunteers and staff continued on with what we were trying to do, and then ended up opening a small school, which was great. It felt really good to be, a part of that from the past and continue to go. I didn't necessarily have my hands in it, but my suggestions and mentorship was great. What I do see is, yes, there is a hardship when we're trying to do it on our own, but what I had to learn is to use the tools that are out there. There's a big difference between an entrepreneur and an intrapreneur, and both of them are still on their own. So, an entrepreneur does everything on their own and wants to sell an idea or a product to the community, whereas an entrepreneur would use tools that are already in place and to create a business of their own. For example, like an Uber, that would be a tool that's already put in place, and then you can now start your business. Um, Insurance companies, they do it too. You can go with a company or go independent. I was with the company for 8 years. I was still my own contractor. I just contracted with them. I went independent last year. Uh, Airbnb is entrepreneurship too, because you're using their tools and platforms. So what I learned to do was, even in the barter system, to use their entrepreneurship tools as well, to start at the very least, because those things are already in place and you don't have to invest in that type of capital. And once you start to grow, it's going to get too big to the point where you can't use the tool anymore. And it would be wise for you to go independent. So that's what I had to learn, because I tried to start independently with everything. I did do my own daycare. I did, but I had to go with the Department of Early Learning to have their mentorship and tools. Whereas when I tried to do it on my own, I didn't really know what to do other than the fact that I was homeschooling my kids. And I was just adding kids to that schedule. So knowing that those tools are out there is what I feel that they should need. With us in our community, with trying to do it on our own, um, I think, you can, and there's ways. There's business structures that you just have to use in place, or what have you. But to start off with using a tool, I feel like would make it more comfortable and more trustworthy when you're introducing yourself to the community. Because
Yeah, that's good advice. I never looked at it like that. Entrepreneur and entrepreneur. I never heard of that topic. Of course, I mean that not that term. Of course, we know about Uber and Airbnbs. I'm hearing a lot of people really getting busy with these Airbnbs.
Mhm.
I'm hearing that like they're leasing apartments or renting apartments, and then what I'm saying, using them as Airbnbs. Have you heard that?
Yeah, I have a partner who also, we started an Airbnb as well, just to see how that worked. Yeah, and it worked. It's lucrative. I mean, like, there's never no one in there. Like, I used to have to rush and go try to change sheets or something. I did pull out of it, just for different reasons, but it was functioning and it works very well. But again, just like with life insurance, people don't know that you can actually use it as a tool to help you fund your business. People just think of life insurance as, oh, for when someone dies and I bury them. But it's called life insurance for a reason. It's to help you during your life and also help your next generation after you pass on's life. Um,
That's a great transition. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how. What would be your advice of how do you generate capital to
mhm.
start a business, and then you can go ahead and segue that into what you're doing right now.
Sure.
Um, as you're doing right now with life insurance. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, financial literacy just means the knowing of, what you can do with financial tools. We just know to work, and then you get money and you go spend it however you want. But if you understand how those tools work, I think that you can use the tools that are in our community to help you. So no one's just sitting on 20, 30,000 to just go buy a business and start that. And yes, we may have some issues with maybe trying to go get a traditional loan. But if you think about it, banks are a business. Banks aren't just a bank for you to put your money in. They're going to take your money and invest it into other businesses and possibly give you back something, which is very minimal. Let's say maybe 0.2% or something. But the business in itself being introduced to the community is just a place to keep your money. They don't know what that money is being, the business part of that. They're just like, let me go put my money in the bank. Well, if you know what they're doing, which is putting your money in insured uh, vehicles and tools, you can also do that for yourself. There's insurance policies that you can literally do the same thing. You can take loans from your insurance policy, money will grow. You can even have it indexed up to caps of 12 to 14% gains every year, dividends being earned, and borrow from yourself. So you just borrow from the insurance vehicle that you are paying for insurance anyway. The capital that's in there, you're going to loan yourself and pay yourself back. So you won't feel like it's going away. So if you keep that cycle up, then every few years as it continues to grow, you can continue to fund your business. So you won't feel like, right? You're paying your own self back. So you're still always going to feel good. So those tools are out there.
One of the things I want to talk about real quick, we talked about this, before we went live, man, and
Yeah.
what I'm saying, every now and again, it never fails. I get, a phone call from a person or get in contact with someone over social media. They ain't seen me for a long time. Might be a former student, might be a friend. I got so many stories. I got one story where this brother was like, see me at the mall. I was working at Sam Goody back in the day. I was a father of
Oh my
three. It
goodness.
was it was one of my I think like two or three jobs or something like that. And he's like, oh man, you remember me? He went to Garfield and everything. And we was just rapping. We had a good conversation, man. He was like, hey man, it's like, you married? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm married. And he's like, man, I can come over, man. And my wife, we should do. I'm like, I was always looking for other married people to hang out with. So we scheduled a date for him to come over to my house, and we had it all set up that we're gonna have dinner. And his wife, he shows up. He said, I'm here. His wife wasn't there. Fiance wasn't there. Then he starts unloading stuff out of his
Ah,
trunk.
he had a presentation for you.
And I'm like, bro, what is going on? Where's your wife? He's like, ah, man, she couldn't make it, man. But I got this great opportunity for you. And it was on some like Amway type stuff. I'm like, dog. And I
Yeah.
remember being so insulted because someone else did this to me too. I had a
Mhm.
former student hit me up. He was like, hey, man, you still doing your comedy? You still doing your... Yeah, man. It's like, oh, Mr. Man, I appreciate it. Let me meet you at a coffee shop. Next thing you know, he's trying to hit me with the prepaid legal. I'm
Yeah.
like, dog. But I already did the prepaid legal and I
Yeah.
used it, you know what I'm saying? And I had like twice, you know what I'm saying, from two different black people. I have no problem supporting them. I just have a problem with the
Bait and
dishonesty.
switch. Yeah.
Like
Bait
I
and
thought they
switch.
were actually wanted like sincere. I felt like I got hustled, man. I felt like
Yeah.
man, if I wanted to get hustled, I'd go to a strip club, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
I can give you some money and you can act like you like me. But how do you determine if it's a pyramid scheme or legit business opportunity? Because I wonder if people are doing the life insurance thing, like
Yeah.
too. Like I always wonder too. It's like the point I'm trying to make, Katrina, is people have kind of messed it up for us
Yes.
too. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Because that's why I'm like even hesitant. Like, hey man, you guys want to financially support and go into with the Griot party experience and be a part of it. Like, I don't even want to ask people for that because they think I'm trying to rip them off.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
do you determine if it's a pyramid scheme or a
You're
legit business
not.
opportunity?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So the only way that you can really do it, is if it's not honesty. Of course, like you said, you got baited and then it switched to it. So there's a lot of bait and switch. If they're to the point, it's honest and that is business anyway. Now, I will say the bait and switch tactics can make people money, and that's why they use it. So if you look at it, any pyramid, I mean, if you look at Burger King, you know what I'm saying? Everybody on the bottom, it's stretched out because you got the workers, then you got the management, then you got the store managers all the way up to the CSR or the corporate, and then you got the head honcho. So if someone drew it, it looks like a pyramid. It don't matter what kind of structure. Now, if it's banked on that, there's a difference between a company structure and something like I have to sell 5 of these to 3 people. That's the pyramid. Like if I don't sell 5 of these to 3 people, I'm not going to get any money because it's not attached to it. So it's the tactic. And that's what makes it tacky because they're really not trying to sell this. They're really trying to sell the concept of getting 3 or 4 people to buy it so I can get in the pool of getting money. That's where that comes in. That's where the people are baiting you, switching you, trying to get you to get in. And if you do it, give me 5 more people and give me 5 more people. And I get that. Just like if you're working at a Burger King, you need to hire 5 more crew members or else you ain't gonna float. So it's the same, but it's different because they're independently doing it compared to a company who already has a structure in place for you to fill those positions. That's very different. Now, with insurance, yeah, of course, people are like, oh no, you're just trying to sell me insurance. Oh, if you want me to be on your team, of course. I'm a business owner. When I was with the last company, it was the same way. I if I ran an office, I had 3 offices that I ran. But your clientele does get pretty built up, so you need help. So in order to get them to help you, they have to be licensed, and in order for you to help them, you're going to get money off of it if get paid. So I created an insurance firm. So everybody who's attached to the firm, yeah, I'm going to get some money off of it, but I'm also training them and teaching them and giving them tools and all types of stuff. And it's structured like a business. Now, am I going around saying, hey, you need some insurance? You're going to die. No, I'm not. But I will educate you and I will tell you what they're really for. And I'm not going to trick you like a commercial because I'm a broker. So someone who's a broker is very different from someone who's an agent. So if I'm an agent of a company. That means I represent a company like State Farm. So I have to sell State Farm products to the community. Whereas a broker, such as myself, I work for myself, but I have contracts with like 25 different carriers. So I'm just going to search for a product that's best for your family. So I'll do a needs analysis on your family and I'll take your needs and I'll find the best insurance for you and present it to you. So that's a big difference. I can't, I'm not a salesman. I promise you. I've been in sales, but I'm not a salesman. I can't convince somebody to use this clip. You don't like blue. So I can't convince you to buy this. I You just don't like blue, you know? But someone could say to me, well, you got to rebuttal. You got to make sure they know that blue is a healthy thing to look at and all the things for you to buy it. So when people are starting to behave that way, that's when you know, compared to someone who generally wants to educate you in the thing that they're doing, I feel that that's really a good business opportunity.
Right. That's dope. That's dope. So let's talk a little bit so we can, we're going to wrap up in a little bit, but I want to go into the 7 modes or 7 lanes of income. You want to talk a little bit about that? How many you at right now? And which one would you like to share, or which ones would you like to share with us that you think that we should get a part of?
So I thought, I thought it was a good thing. So it all depends on how you look at it. I was up to about 5 at one point, with like, the moving company, doing hair, catering, my taxes and insurance all at the same time. And they claim the 7 so that way they can function for you and you're not physically working. They're just pretty much running it on their own. But I found that if they're in different categories, it can spread you thin. So it's just like having multiple partners, right? Like you can't keep up with like 4 or 5 different people and they're all complaining about the same neglect because you're spread out. But you can have 7 streams of income within your focus business. So, for example, with my life insurance, I also knew that there's different forms of insurance out there, not just life. There's health insurance, there's Medicare, there's Medicaid, right? There's accidental, there's supplemental, there's what is that? Long-term care. So if I took 7 of those in my own industry, I'll still be functioning my 40 hours or whatever boss schedule I put myself on, but it'll be in the same industry so I don't feel spread out. If that makes sense.
Mm,
Yeah, because I
yeah,
just started to do that. I just started to because I was all over the place. Yeah,
yeah. Just as you said that, I started writing down like my artist services, what
yeah,
I'm saying, that I could, and I got up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 already.
yeah,
So it's like as an artist and as an educator, I can sell speaking engagements.
yes.
I can ghostwrite or write resumes, cover letters. I can sell music, producing, selling also music, what I'm saying, like, streaming, but also just selling content in general, just streaming
And your
content.
products,
And yeah,
selling off
well,
your
yeah,
products
yeah,
and
and my,
merch and
my
all that.
t-shirts, my shea
Yes,
butter, my incense, and then last but not least, there was something else. Oh yeah, just education, just consulting, or even
yes,
counseling or life coaching.
yes.
So like that was a that was a jewel that you just now gave me that I hadn't even thought about like
Yeah.
that. Like, because I'm trying to think of like all these different places I can go. No, just keep it right into,
Right. Yep.
artist, educator, educator, artist, and then you got 7 lanes of income just right in there. Hmm.
That's right there.
So, so tell them how they can, contact you and be a part of what you're doing and support you, and you can support them.
Yes. Well, I mean, let's see, where should I put it?
Yeah, I can put it up there for you, but just tell them where they can find you when not.
Yeah. So, I mean, my name, you can look me up on Facebook. It's Katrina Collie, just straight up. That's what it is. I don't have an Instagram. Well, I do, but I don't really function in it. And you can contact me directly on my business line, 253. Well, I don't know. Should I put in the chat? 253-353-2104. I do have consulting times as well. I do have a calendar where you can set an hour with me to sit with me. Entrepreneur or
You broke up.
entrepreneur.
Say that one more time. You broke up. Go ahead. Say that one more time.
Yeah, feel free to contact me there. I also have a time slot calendar where you can sit and make an appointment with me to pick my brain on
Okay.
business structure and
What's your phone number? You said 253.
353-2104.
Yeah. So, like, what is like a sit down or a consultation look like with you? Like, what can people expect?
Yeah. So I just listen to your ideas and seeing which direction you want to go. And then that's when I can tell whether you should use tools of entrepreneurship or continue on with your entrepreneur ideas. And I can give guidance on what kind of tools financially as well that you can use to help start and fund that. And we can create a game plan and end goal. If you do take me on as a mentor, I can help you all the way to opening.
Mm, okay. Um, and if you were to think about like what we talked about today, right? And we always do this at every C Talk episode. You know what I'm saying? I always like to like, what's the takeaway? So we have, something called the plan of action. So
Mhm.
what will be your plan of action based on what we talked about today with financial literacy, talking about your upbringing, your parents from different cultures, 7 lanes of income, all that.
Yeah.
What's the plan of action?
I think to me is awareness in the community and understanding the differences because we are so straightforward in what they have game plan for us in this matrix once we were born. But if they understand and are aware, then they can make moves differently. So a sit down with me and helping you do that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to add on to what you said, I feel like our plan of action is to take your hobbies
Hmm.
and figure out a way to turn it into
That's your
making
investment.
money for yourself.
Sure can.
You know what I'm saying? So like for instance, I like to write and I write, a lot. I write every single day. It's a part of therapy. It calms me, but it also can be a stream of income.
Yes.
And it never fails. Anytime that I put it out there on social media, do you want me to help you with your resume? Do you want me to write your cover letter? It's always an easy 3-digit, come up for me because I've learned how to, take my passion or my hobby and turn it into, profit. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And so any hobby that you have, go on YouTube, go to the library, read up on it, use your Googles in a way that's, beneficial to you and figure out how you can turn that passion into profit.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? But also
Absolutely.
and also be a conscious, capitalist and consumer and not always try to get over on people. That will be my plan of action and my homework of just turning your passion into profit.
Yes, absolutely. And also with the generational wealth spilling into your next generations, that's where the life insurance and security comes in as well. Because even though you're using the gains that are in it Imagine passing away and you have insurance on all of your kids like at birth. That's the cheapest and one of the most healthiest anyway. Because a lot of times people feel like they can just go and purchase life insurance whenever they want, but they don't understand that they consider their age, health, and habits in those moments, and you may not qualify for any of it. So what most non-melanated people do is put them on their children as soon as they're born. And as they get older and all that cash is accumulating, and once they turn 20 and they're on their own, there's so much money in there for them to be able to function in the world. And as their generations pass on and pass on, that's how they become millionaires in their families, because they have these insurances that are passing on into their generations. And we don't do that.
Yeah, I would love to have you on the show again and talk about when we talk about life insurance. Talk these artists who are getting signed to record labels, and that the record labels are actually putting out insurance. You know what I'm saying, on their actual artist
Yeah.
as a prerequisite to get signed to the label. I think that's very interesting.
Mhm.
Very
You
interesting
know
because
what?
that's
Companies do it. When you
yeah,
go and get hired, they're putting insurance on you. And that's the thing
right.
too, because people feel like, oh, I have insurance through work. No, the company has insurance on you for working there. You don't have a
Yeah,
policy, and people don't understand that. So that's what I
interesting.
mean by changing their mindset and understanding what's going on so they can have more control over their retirement and their own monies.
It's also a perfect example of what I talked about earlier in the program of how, you know, um, our career and work, structure and framework is based off, chattel slavery, because that's the
Mhm.
same thing that the enslaver or the colonizer, they pulled out, they had insurance on the people they enslaved,
Yeah. Oh, of course.
which
They knew
is
what they were
crazy.
doing. Yeah, they knew what they were doing. And they probably
It's
used the money
crazy.
that was built up in it to fund all the stuff that they were doing. So
Yeah.
there's a lot. There's a lot to do with it.
Well, it's been great. I'm interested, for future, episodes and whatnot, and even getting you on a panel of other, saying entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, and continue the conversation. Make sure you get a hold of Katrina at 253-353-2104. You also can contact her on Facebook. You can message her if you can't get a hold of her on the phone or whatnot. So it's been great. We out. C Talk. Make sure that you share and you comment and engage. We love y'all. Peace, peace, peace.